Hi. Today I would like to show you a new piece I just made, and I've learned a few things with this one. It is a chalice, or like a glass made out of copper. It has a funny shape, but it stands well. And as you might have noticed, lately I'm very much into cones. Now this is all made out of cones, 3 of them, joined together, soldered together, and they are made from a third circle. So if you take a disc, you divide it to 3, and from 1/3 of it you make a cone that looks like this, just like that. And because you know the radius of this disc, therefore you know the circumstance of this cone, and therefore you know the diameter of this cone. You can calculate the angle of this cone, because if you know an angle and 2 sides of a triangle, you can calculate the other 2 angles. And this one happens to be 36.8 degrees. And the legs of the chalice have the same degree, of course, because they are made out of another disc with half of the diameter. But of course the proportion is the same, and that makes it possible that I soldered together them all along where they touch each other. If you would make a cone out of 2/3 of a circle, it would look like this. And this one happens to have 67.4 degrees, just for curiosity. This is also a nice proportion. Could be another vessel. So this one, as I said, I made out of copper, but then I soldered together all the parts with silver, which is a soldering that happens around 800-900 degrees. It will be interesting for the next part later. And well, I textured it, the surface, and I hallmarked it with copper and my eye mark. And then I did something I never did before. I coated the inside of the glass with tin, with pure tin. Because remember, the tin you can buy in most of the hardware stores is alloyed with lead and with other things, which is not so good for food safety. But I have found a supplier where I bought pure tin, and with this you can coat the inside. It is a very old technique called wide tinning. I will explain why. And so I said that the melting point of the solder is around 800 degrees. Melting point of the tin is 231 degrees. For a jeweler or for a blacksmith, it's warm. You don't see the glowing metal, so it's for us it's very difficult to work in this heat range. I find it very, very difficult. And not to overheat the piece. So what happens is that you still have to heat up the copper to around 400 degrees, still not glowing, so it's difficult to know. But before you have to use, you have to apply a flux. When we solder the silver, you know, we apply the borax flux, which melts above 730 degrees, and that protects the metal from oxidizing, and it helps the solder to flow. For this stuff, the flux used is an organic grease. In the traditional way, they even use tallow. Now I used commercial grease, which is a slightly acidic substance, and you spread it all over the copper, and then you start to heat it up, and then you rub this piece of tin on the surface, and then comes the wiping part. Why it's called wiping? You take a stick with a cotton cloth on it, tied. You spread some grease on it, and then in the moment when the tin starts to melt, you spread it all over. Now, if you don't succeed at the first part, and if you overheat it, then you oxidize the copper, and then it won't go again. So then you have to pickle your piece, clean it completely, and then rub again the flux, and then start it all over again. But here, because this was my first wipe tinning, I did it like 4 or 5 times, when finally I was pleased with the result. I don't know if it works, but next time I will try. This is an iron stick with a copper brush on it, and I think this should also work to spread the tin over the place. And as for the flux, I would also like to try wax, like beeswax, and also paraffin wax. Plumbers do use these fluxes when they solder lead pipes. So that's for the white tinning. This is a traditional way to coat bigger pots. Another thing I did, because I didn't want to overflow the tin on the outside of the piece, I applied a coat of inhibitor, which in this case was something I just invented. It is a mixture of toothpaste and talc powder, and a spoon of alcohol. And then I mixed it, and I coated the outside to make sure that even if the tin flows outside, it won't stick there. It is an inhibitor. With silver soldering, we also do use talc, but we can use clay, or we can use a graphite pencil and rub it on the surface to protect the surface, or even to protect previous solders. Another interesting thing I learned about this tinning is that when the tin melts, which, as I said, it is around 231 degrees, it is not enough temperature to get it stick on the copper. You need to go up to 400-ish, 400 Celsius degrees, because that's the moment when on the surface of the copper you create an intermetallic component, an intermetallic surface, which is not copper, not tin, and not even an alloy of copper and tin, because that would be bronze. It's not bronze. The formula of this is Cu3SN. And it is not an alloy, as I said. It is rather an ionic compound. And first, on the copper, you create this one. On the top of that, there is another similar compound with different proportions. There you have Cu6SN5, and that's on the top. And only on the top of that coat will stick the pure metallic tin. Now, if you overheat the piece, then these elements they converge to Cu3SN, because that's the most stable from these. And also with time and with slow heating, just like cooking by years or decades, slowly your coat will become this Cu3SN, which is okay because it's also a very stable material, and your food won't stick on it and shouldn't leave traces in your food. But if you don't like it because it's not shiny anymore, then you have to rub it off and then thin it again from the beginning. So I'm learning this white thinning. I find it very interesting, and I think I will do more experiments. Thank you for your attention.